few weeks ago, I shared that I had an affinity for apocalyptic storytelling. Now, a few weeks ago, I used that as a way to talk about the theologically deficient Left Behind series of books. And when I spoke of that interest, I said I didn't have an explanation for why I liked that genre. I think I have one now. Hope. Yes, finding hope in the midst of calamity. I'm special. But that is a very common theme in this genre. These stories show us that even in the darkest of times, we are not alone. That we are to turn to one another and support each other. And they also exemplify the importance of hope, even and especially when we are at our lowest points. And theologically, that is central to having faith in God. Knowing that we are never alone, for God is always with us. And that our hope and faith is to be placed in God, always. And these themes are also echoed in two of our readings today. The first reading comes from the prophet Jeremiah. And in it we heard God promising that better days were coming. A time when a new righteous branch would rise up and lead God's people. A new leader who would rule with justice and righteousness. And Judah and Israel would be at peace and safe. Now, God's promise here of a new leader, a new branch, is of a different kind of leader, different from earthly rulers. This would be no ordinary king, but one who would be just and kind. A leader who would unite the people, not divide them. And these promises from God came to the people of Israel at a key time. They were living in exile in Babylon during the first diaspora. Many of the faithful were beginning to give up hope, to simply adopt the ways of their oppressors. This was a time of despair for many. They had lost their hope in God. And so the message from God was, do not give up. Remember that God was and always would be still with them. The message was that the present struggles were not the end. God was and is. God knew that the people were suffering, but wanted them to know that their future was always with God. Now, today's gospel passage should seem a bit familiar. It bears striking similarities with Mark's little apocalypse, which we heard 2 weeks ago. Today we heard from Luke, as Jesus is teaching in the temple. Jesus tells those closest to him that there were dark times ahead. He said that the Son of Man, the Messiah, would return and all would see it. And that this will be a sign that redemption is near. Jesus declared that some changes would come soon. Much would change. But his words would always be eternal. And finally, he told those listening to be on guard and alert, not distracted with the worries of this life. A story about the end times doesn't seem like it would be one of hope. And yet here it is. Here Jesus is prophesying end times. Now, which end times he's prophesying about is a bit complicated, but regardless, the message of Jesus here is that our present suffering, no matter how bad it is not the end. It is a message of hope, even in the midst of darkness. But what is this message, this hope, supposed to compel us to do? Or we just simply sit back, have faith, and wait for Jesus' eventual return? No. That would mean being apathetic or indifferent to the present world and all who are in it. Apathy is not a faithful option. Neither is withdrawal from the world. The apocalyptic message here is not a call to certainty or relaxation. It is a call to action. We are to take action by loving justice, doing justice, loving kindness, and speaking truth to power. Now, I don't typically like to utilize quotes in my sermons, but sometimes I just can't beat the words of those that are wiser than I. So I'd like to share a powerful message, a powerful few lines I read from theologian. Hope. Hope begins with a recognition that the way the world is currently is not how it should be or how it was intended to be. We can then fall into despair, giving into the broken state of the world, or to hope that the current brokenness of the world will not persevere. But good news, however slow, is coming. The message of this quote and of this passage is that we must remain connected to the world while not being corrupted by it. And that we are to have faith that this is not the end. That things can and will get better. And finally, we are left with Jesus' final admonition to his followers in this passage. To not be weighed down or distracted by the worries of this life. And that might actually be the hardest part of this passage. We are to remain a part of the world, remain engaged with it, work to make it better. But at the same time, must not get distracted by it. This does seem like an impossible balance to maintain. The best I can figure is that we are to remember to keep our eyes and our hearts set on God as our ultimate destination. while also caring about our present worries. That is how we best prepare ourselves for the second coming. As the same theologian I quoted earlier has said, the life of a disciple, after all, is not one of speculation or of observation, but of behavior and relationships. Our job is to remain engaged and to mirror the love that God has for all, with everyone. Or put another way, to seek and serve Christ and all people. Today we are beginning our journey, brief journey, through Advent. This is a season of preparation and expectation. We prepare to honor Jesus' first coming into the world while also looking forward to his coming once again. And we are also beginning a new year in the life of the church. And we are to look on this with hope and excitement. And all of that is part of what it means to follow Jesus. And so, as we begin this season of reflection, let us strive to embrace the armor of light, which is our faith. Work to support one another in the midst of our struggles. And remember that before all things and after all things is God and God's love. Amen.